Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Ain binti Muhammad Nurizan and my matrix number is 284802. So we are from group 4. We're going to be presenting our group assignment task, which is the topic that we choose for today is about the late payment charge, which is ta'awid by the Shariah Advisory Council from Bank Negara Malaysia. So as for the introduction, we all know that one of the common issues that happen for both financial institutions, whether it is for Islamic banks or conventional banks, when some of the customer they face the difficulty to pay back all of the installment with the bank. And also there are some cases where the customer they like to procrastinate in fulfilling their obligation to pay all of the debt. And it will affect the financial institutions, and because of that, Islamic Bank in Malaysia they has applied the concept of ta'awid, which is a compensation, and gharama, which is penalty. So according to the announcement that has been released on 29 June 2010 by Shariah Advisory Councils of Bank Negara Malaysia, they consider about the late payment of financial obligation will resulting from exchange contract, which is some of the contract is such as buy sell and hire purchase agreement, and also card, which is loan, may be subject to ta'awid, which is compensations. And some of the conditions are both contracting parties they must acknowledge about ta'awid, and they are required to agree before they proceed with the contract. And only the authority side, which is Bank Negara Malaysia, could determine and choose the ta'awid rate. Thus, ta'awid in an Islamic bank could be defined as a fine that the parties to the deal have agreed upon the reimbursement that the financier, which is the creditor, may be entitled to when the debtor, which is the customer, fails to or postpone fulfilling its commitment to repay their loan. Besides of ta'awid, there also gharama, which is gharama also has been used as a practical application in Islamic banking in Malaysia. And according to the Bank Negara Malaysia, gharama can be defined as a penalty charge assessed to defaulters. So if the customer delay their payment, it will cause harm to the Islamic financial institutions because they will have to pay more for things like the notice and the letters, legal fees, and other related costs.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul binti Asmadi. My matric number is 290033. Now I will proceed the laws related to the Sharia governance under the issue of late payment in Islamic banking. The Sharia governance have to be applied by Bank Negara Malaysia, BNM, or we call it Central Bank of Malaysia. This is because this Sharia governance creates such important body like Sharia committee in every bank to make sure Islamic finance industry in Malaysia has complied with Sharia compliance in every aspect, including structures, policies, and end-to-end Sharia compliance in Islamic finance operation. We can see in the ta'awid and gharama rules and guidelines. The position of late charge payment will be based on the particular principle and condition whether one of them will be implemented or both. This first condition is when the principles combine both late payment charge, which are ta'awid and gharama. Islamic banking institution can implement both but after it got the permission and approval from the bank after submit the form and document related to this matter according to the section 155 of IFSA clearly stated that an operator or a designated payment system and financial holding must submit any document and information related to this matter to the Bank Negara of Malaysia. On top of that, the late charge payment must be based on the average financing rate AFR at the point of default computed in monthly basis in respective bank based on their type of product and customer. Plus, it cannot exceed the profit or cost that have been agreed by both parties. Furthermore, Islamic banking institution can use benchmark as the reference or guideline for the rate or amount of charge that will be paid by them. Meanwhile, Islamic business institutions have to follow charge rate by credit card guideline for the credit. Next, Ta'wid also applied to the rate but must be distributed to depositor or shareholder income because of their right as the owner. On top of that, it also has third principle, which is Gharama. Shariah against Gharama to be the source of fine income, so the money has to distribute to charitable organization for it to be used by needy or poor people. Gharama also must be kept separately between it and another type of money for it to be easy to monitor, identify, and avoid it from becoming misuse.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Siti Nur Hidayah binti Zahid. My metric number is 285148. So basically, ta'wid means an amount of charges agreed upon by the contracting parties as compensation that can rightfully be claimed by the creditor arising from actual loss suffered when the debtor fails or is late in meeting his obligation to pay back the debt. So, ta'wid can be shown by two court cases below. Okay, so the first case is 5-star room hotel Sendirian Berhad versus Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad. The issue here is Bank Islam demanded compensation against 5-star room hotel Sendirian Berhad. So the summary is the plaintiff has demanded compensation against the defendant. However, the defendant demanded general damages against the plaintiff. After the plaintiff and the defendant held a meeting, they agreed to cancel all the claims. This is because the plaintiff had agreed when the defendant asked to pay the arrears in installments. However, the defendant once again failed to pay in installments and the plaintiff cancelled the payment rescheduling agreement. They ended up suing each other again and causing a mistake in the High Court. The wise Judicial Commissioner decided to strike out the counterclaim, so there was nothing left to move to the High Court and appeal dismissed with cost 10,000 ringgit Malaysia. Okay, so the second case is CIMB Islamic Bank Berhad versus Bina Variamas Development Sendirian Berhad. So the issue here is the CIMB Islamic Bank, which is the plaintiff, filed a writ action against the defendant, which is Bina Variamas, to get back the Islamic facilities. Okay, so the summary of this case. At the request of the first defendant, the plaintiff has offered and the first defendant has agreed to accept a flexi-term financing facility under the concept of commodity murabahah with a specific amount. Okay, so the first defendant has used the facility but has failed to repay the facility on time. Because the plaintiff has applied to claim back the facilities that have been given, the court has given judgment directly to the plaintiff where the judgment amounting a specific amount, including with the relevant ta'wid, as well as cost amounting to 5,000 ringgit Malaysia ordered for the defendants to pay to the plaintiff. This judgment contains the full reasons for the court's decisions.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Nur Shariah Nafisa binti Abdullah with metric number 286431 and I will be continuing the presentation on the solution. And the imposition of a late payment penalty or default interest in the event of a payment delay is forbidden by Islamic finance rule. This is due to the fact that a monetary fine for late payment is considered to be usury or interest, which is against Islamic financing main principle. However, it was decided later by the SAC that the concept of gharama, which is fine or penalty, and ta'wid was permissible under few conditions. There are few solutions that could be done to solve the issue of late payment. The first one is form a tabarruk fund. Tabarruk refers to a gift contribution or charitable act that cannot be revoked. In takaful, the basic rule is that a portion of the contributors' contribution will be deemed tabarruk and cannot be refunded since it is the foundation of the shared promise to support other contributors. Any client who procrastinate or miss an installment payment will be required to pay a fee to a charity fund. Islamic Bank will distribute the remaining fund from this fund to the needy and other deserving after subtracting the service fees and other expenses. Therefore, the charges of the late payment will not be for the bank itself, but it will be advantageous to the needy community. Secondly, to apply more profit-sharing financing product. The instrument used for profit sharing include musyarakah and mudarabah. Equity financing is being practiced in this way. Usually, company requires capital from bank or investors. Therefore, equity also aid in lowering individuals' business risk. By utilizing equity finance, it is possible to maintain a proper and equal distribution of income and wealth because both the capital source and the mudarib share in the company's success and failure. These financial instruments follow the genuine spirit of the Islamic idea of risk sharing, which is no sharing without risk taking. The 3-in-1 component of risk, work and effort and liability should all be present. Equity finance such as musyarakah and mudarabah fulfill all these requirements for risk, effort and obligation, and as a result, equity financing contracts are more fair. They are more consistent with maqasid Shariah. And the third one, which is the last one, is to impose more strict rules, which is generally the term of Islamic finance instrument apply and are construed in line with them. The Shariah requirement of the transaction should be fully incorporated in a set of well-written Islamic financing document, which is presenting the need to cite additional Islamic sources when describing Islamic principle. A proper controlling registration should be mentioned in the Islamic finance agreement, and it should be ensured that any Shariah principle are in line with that law. Certain rules need to be set up to restrict people from borrowing out of their capability to pay back. Stricter repayment condition should be enforced and written agreement should be carefully reviewed.
Alright, so as for the conclusion, we can conclude that Islamic finance in Malaysia, they still face many difficulties and challenges. As for our suggestions, to avoid a dispute over the late payment charge, maybe the Islamic banks, they should form a tabarruk. After they deducted the service charge and the other expenditure which is from this fund, maybe Islamic bank are advised to distribute the remaining for the poor, the needy and also the welfare. And moreover, the banks maybe can consider the situation of defaulters when a customer maybe they face real financial difficulties. So that's all from our group. Thank you.